Valiant Hearts is a side-scrolling puzzle adventure game developed by Ubisoft Montpellier and released in June of 2014. It is set to the backdrop of the First World War and tells the story of 4 people caught up in the conflict and their trials as they struggle to stay together and survive. Using an animated comic strip art style, the game attempts to showcase the struggles and horrors of a time that is for the most part untouched in the medium of video games. Minimizing gameplay in favor of the narrative, Valiant Hearts utilizes historical facts and journal entries from the main characters to paint a unique picture of the front lines in World War I era France. The game begins by introducing you to Karl, a German living on a farm in France with his French wife Marie, his infant son Victor, and his father-in-law Emile. As the war breaks out, France expels all Germans from the country and Karl is forced to leave his family and go back to Germany where he is pressed into military service. Emile is likewise drafted into the French army and sent to the front line to defend against the Germans, and becomes your first of 4 playable characters. The controls are very obviously native to the console, and so they will require a bit of remapping if you're going to play it with a mouse and keyboard on the PC. Even still, there are certain sections like tunneling around bombs that clearly feel like they need a thumbstick to properly navigate and can cause some frustration. Gameplay takes a backseat to the narrative here, and is a mix of object puzzles, thrown items, and a few timing puzzles, but none of them are all that difficult. I am not generally a puzzle gamer, and when I do play them I am usually using the Wikipedia to find solutions, but I found that I never really even needed the in-game hint system here. There are several things that this game tries to do with its story and its gameplay, and sometimes it works and other times it doesn't. Finding a consistent tone early on is a problem, as the humor seems uneven at times against the horrors of the war that are being shown, but this is less of an issue in the latter half of the game as it comes together and feels more natural. Part of this problem is also seen in the fact that through most of the game, the antagonist is cartoonishly evil compared to all the other people in the game. This doesn't necessarily feel out of place to begin with, but as the game moves on, it starts to seem more and more out of place compared to all the other history that you see. The simplicity of the puzzles here serve to keep the player moving through the story without getting held up in any one section, but it can make for a somewhat underwhelming gameplay challenge. Throughout the game you're given journal entries from each of the main characters as well as Marie, Karl's wife. These combine with the gameplay and cutscenes to flesh out the characters and their motives, but the delivery of the entries is not threaded into the gameplay. At what seems like random intervals you will receive a notification that there are more entries available, but you are usually given several at once across multiple characters. In addition, you will always begin with the most recent entry, so you'll have to back them up a couple of pages sometimes to catch up on what you might have missed. Historical facts about the war are presented in the same way, and while they don't contain any gameplay relevant information, they do serve to explain certain elements of the period and setting. One explanation about Britain bringing in troops from its colonies in India makes sense of why you were fighting with the standard French infantry one minute and are now charging the hill with guys wearing turbans the next. I enjoyed learning more about the war, but as with the journal entries, I wish that they had implemented them in a more intuitive way that really enhanced the game. Despite my issues here, there are moments where this game really shines. While uneven at times, the humor does serve to balance out some of the heavier story elements, and as the game settles into itself in the second half, you really see a lot more of the individual characters shine through. Even though the somber elements can be a bit heavy-handed at times, I was impressed at how each of its characters was treated, while making it a very human story about war and what its impact can be on both sides. The music and the art really marry together beautifully and provide a lot of subtle detail. In the end, I will say that Valiant Hearts is worth the playthrough if you're looking for a good story and aren't bothered by simplistic gameplay. It is currently available as a download title on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, Android, and iOS. Also, if you're further interested in learning more about World War I history, the Extra Credits guys have a great series called Extra History, and one of the series of videos they have is all about the lead up to World War I. I'll post a link in the description below, and I highly encourage anybody who's interested to take a look at it. It's really good stuff.